Have you ever heard people in the gym or maybe other people on YouTube say things such as the pump or gains or cutting, bulking, full range of motion, supersets, drop sets, some of these different terms, and being confused or wondered what they mean? In this video right now I'm going to explain 30 different common fitness terms, and when I say 30, don't worry because I'm going to go through them super fast so that it doesn't waste any of your time. Number 30 is pump. The word pump basically just means when you're lifting weights such as doing a bicep curl, blood, water and fluid goes into that muscle and it feels like it's pumped up. It feels like you're pumping air into the muscle, let's say. It almost feels like the muscle is swollen, like it's got bigger temporarily whilst you're pumping that fluid into the muscle. 29 is cutting, leaning out or getting lean. Any of these terms basically mean that your goal is to lose body fat. Your goal is to cut down the body fat, potentially to reveal your abs. Which leads me to number 28, which is caloric deficit. If your goal is to lose body fat, you're in a caloric deficit. That means if you're eating 2,000 calories a day and that maintains your weight, you don't get any fatter or bigger and you don't get any smaller or leaner. Then if you was to eat 1,500 calories per day, that would mean now your body is using body fat as an energy source and you would lose body fat. Being in a caloric deficit is necessary to lose body fat. I do talk about that in my free ebook that you can download in the link below, but I want to move straight into number 27, which is bulking or getting bigger or going on a bulk. All of these things basically just mean the opposite. So your goal is to build muscle, to get bigger, which again leads me into number 26, which is caloric surplus or calorie surplus. What that basically means is the opposite to a calorie deficit. So if we take those same 2,000 calories that would maintain your weight, you might add 500 calories. So now you're eating 2,500 calories a day, and that way you would gain weight. The goal would be to build as much muscle as possible by gaining weight and obviously gaining as little body fat as possible. So number 25, I'm going to squeeze two into one here, and that's sets and reps. Basically a rep is, let's take an exercise such as a bicep curl. You move the weight up and then you bring the weight back down. That completes one repetition or one rep. So maybe you do 12 of these, that would be 12 reps. So then a set is, after you've done those 12 reps, that would be one set. And it doesn't have to be 12, it might be 2, it might be 6. So you might be going for 6 reps and then you put the weight down, you will rest maybe 30 seconds, that would complete one set. Then you would go again and do another 6 reps and then that would complete another set. While we're on sets, I'm going to go over drop sets and supersets. So a superset is when you take two muscle groups and train them together. So for example, a common one would be biceps and triceps. For example, you might do a bicep curl and then where normally you would take a rest, you don't. You go immediately into your second exercise, which might be, let's say, a tricep kickback, and then you rest. So you'll do your bicep exercise followed immediately by the tricep exercise, then you might rest for 30 seconds. That would complete one set, and then you would do the same over and over again. You can do this with chest and back, for example, or almost any body part really. Drop sets are when you drop the weight. So for example, you might do 10 kg or let's say 20 pounds, whatever you measure your weights in, whatever country you're from. You might do dumbbell side laterals with 20 pounds or 10 kg. You might complete 10 reps, for example, and then normally you would rest, but instead with a drop set you don't rest. You lower the weight so that you can continue to do more reps. So now you might lower the weight to 5 kg or to 15 pounds or 10 pounds and go again, and then you drop the weight again, and then instead of resting you would drop the weight again. So you basically just keep dropping the weight so that you can continue and then rest at the end. Number 23 is full range of motion. This basically just means that you are working the muscle in its entirety, in its full range of motion. So if you was doing a bench press, a full range of motion would be starting here and coming all the way down until the bar touches your chest, and then all the way back up again. That is an example of full range of motion. Number 22 is working to failure, or people might say reps to failure. That basically just means let's say your goal is to do 10 reps to failure. That would mean that you would do 10 reps, and at the end of the 10 reps, it's impossible for you to get an 11th rep with correct form. So you're training the muscle to failure. The muscle you're working cannot actually complete another rep with correct form. Number 21 is a personal pet peeve of mine, so I'm going to explain it quite quickly, but I do want to go into a little bit of detail, which is toning or toning a muscle, or I want to be more toned. And it's often something that beginners say, and it basically means that you want, when somebody says that, it means that you want more definition. You want to be able to see the muscle be more defined. However, this is sort of my pet peeve of it, and people don't talk about this. Other coaches on YouTube don't ever talk about this, and that is, there's no such thing as toning a muscle. It's actually impossible to tone a muscle. You can't do it. A muscle is either anabolic, which is building, or catabolic, which is to break the muscle down. That's the state of which your muscles are in. You can't tone a muscle. You're either building a muscle or you're not. It's that simple. Number 20, ripped, shredded, lean. All of these things basically just mean that you have a low body fat, that you could see your abs, you would be called shredded or ripped or lean. Number 19, you might hear people say he's jacked, or you might hear the word gains, or look at those gains, or his gains, or her gains. It basically just means you're big, you're muscular. Number 18 is quite an important one, and that's spotter. Spotter is basically somebody that stands over you, helping you with the weight if necessary. So maybe you're doing the bench press and someone is stood over you, and on that last rep you want somebody stood over you in case you actually go for the rep and you can't get the weight back up. If that happens, you have your spotter there to help you pull the weight back up and rack the weight safely. Which leads me into number 17, which is racking the weight. That just means is putting the weights back where they come from. So if you're doing the bench press, you take the weight off, you come down, you go back up, and then you rack the weights, you put the weights back. Number 16 is forced reps. Again, this is when you have somebody helping you, and so forced reps are when you can no longer lift the weight, you've hit failure, you can't continue any longer, but what happens is you will have a friend or somebody else help you lift the weight up, so they will actually physically help you lift the weight up, and then on the lower end of the weight, they will actually not help you. So they'll help you lift the weight up, for example, on a bicep curl, and then you will lower the weight on your own. Then they will help you lift it up again, and then you will come back down again. So you're overloading the muscle further than what it's capable of doing because somebody's helping you lift it up. Number 15 is eccentric and concentric. The concentric part of a movement, and I'll use a bicep curl as an example again, is on the way up. That's the concentric, that's the shortening of the muscle. The eccentric part of the movement is the lowering of the weight. So on the way back down, that's the lengthening of a muscle. And number 14 is contracting and extending. That's a very similar thing. So contracting, that means you're squeezing the muscle. Extending means you feel a stretch on the muscle. I always tell people when you're in the gym, one of the biggest things you can do when you're training is always feel the stretch and always feel the squeeze. So you feel the squeeze on the way back up. Right here, you're squeezing the bicep. You're not just going through the movement. And on the way back down, you're feeling the stretch. Your bicep is stretched out fully. Number 13 is a barbell and a dumbbell. I'm just going to show the images here so that you know which one's which. Number 12 is your rest time. So this is the time that you're resting in between a set. So let's say you do one set of bicep curls, 12 reps, you put the weight down. Now the rest time might be 30 seconds, 60 seconds. So you're putting the weight down, you're recovering so that you can come back and do another 12 reps again. Number 11, a term that gets used a lot in the fitness space, and that's bro science. So basically science means it's proven, it means it's a fact. It means if you smoke cigarettes, it's proven that you have an increased chance of getting cancer. Bro science is things that gurus or professionals in the industry sort of just make up as they go along, and because they have a big following, people actually listen to their advice. There's a lot of those people, unfortunately, that tell you things and you believe it and it seems logical, but it's just actually not true. Number 10 is hypertrophy. Some other people pronounce it hypertrophy or many other different terms, but hypertrophy is basically when your goal is to build muscle. you are training for hypertrophy. That is the goal. You're training to build muscle. Number 9, rest and recovery. It can mean a lot of different things, but typically speaking, it basically just means mainly sleeping, because sleep is the best thing that you can do to recover from your workout. Number 8 is HIIT and LISS. These are two forms of cardiovascular exercise. So HIIT stands for high intensity interval training, which, don't worry, it's simple. It basically means you have high intensity and the training is in intervals. So for example, you might do sprints. You might do 30 seconds of a flat out sprint followed by 10 to 30 seconds of rest. So you're very, very intense. Obviously sprinting is going to get your heart rate way, way up here. And the interval is the rest part of it. You're doing it in intervals. It's not a 10-minute sprint with not stopping at all. It's a 30-second sprint followed by potentially a 20-second rest. And these sort of workouts tend to last about 10 to 15 minutes long because you're totally exhausted by the end of it. LISS training, on the other hand, is low intensity steady state. So again, it's cardio. This is something like walking, or you'll see people walking very slowly on the treadmill, or you'll see people doing the elliptical machine. This is just going very, very slow. So it's low intensity, your heart rate's not elevated much. Number 7, and this is something I talked about in a lot of my other videos that I've done so far on YouTube, and that's compound movements versus isolation exercises. I also talk about this in my free ebook that you can download, and I talk about many other things in that book as well. But basically, an isolation exercise is just working one muscle. For example, the side lateral raise, just like this, working the shoulders, you are just working one muscle group, which in this case would be the middle deltoid. A compound movement would be something like a shoulder press. You're working the shoulders, but you're also going to be working triceps, and so you're working multiple muscle groups in one. So number 6 is full body workouts and split routines or split workouts. Basically, a full body workout is when you're working all of the muscle groups together. For example, you might do 3 full body workouts per week, Monday, Wednesday and Friday, working all the muscle groups: back, chest, arms, shoulders, legs, all of the muscle groups that you have in your body. You would work them all on one day. On the other hand, a split routine is where you split each body part up into sometimes separate days, or you might do a push-pull legs routine, but it's basically splitting the muscle groups up throughout the whole week. So you might do chest and back on Monday, and you might do shoulders and arms on Tuesday, and legs on Wednesday, and then Thursday, Friday and Saturday repeat the same sequence. Or you might even do one body part per day. Chest on Mondays, back on Tuesdays, legs on Wednesdays, and that might be your split routine. Number 5 common fitness term is lifting, or let's go and lift, or lift. Basically just means going to the gym, lifting weights. A lot of people use that term, and next time you'll know it just means going to the gym basically and getting a workout in. Number 4 is noob gains. Noob gains is just somebody who started out, who's building a lot of muscle quickly because their body's reacting to this new stimulus that it didn't have before. Number 3 is supination and pronation, and the supination part is actually very important here. So pronation, I'll go through that first. If you have a neutral hand, like this for example, pronation is turning the hand this way. That's pronating. If you are supinating, think about pinky coming up. So if you're in a neutral position, the pinky right here is going to be coming up. That's supinating the bicep in this case. And if you actually do that with your arm right now, you look down at your bicep as you twist your pinky like this, you will see how the bicep activates, and that's why it's so important when you're doing bicep curl to not just go through the movements, but to actually twist the pinky on the way up to activate the bicep more. Number 2 is macros, or macronutrients. To put it very simply, it means a little bit more than what I'm going to say here, but basically it's just the calories that you eat. It's the proteins, the fats and the carbohydrates that you eat each day. You might track your macros in grams and you might track your calories, but macros basically just means your carbs, fats and proteins that you're consuming each day. Number 1 thing that I have to say to you is, what's the next step? You know all of the different terms, but what you can do next is read this free ebook that I have. Just download it, it's totally free. That's now going to give you some further information on nutrition, training, actually set a training program up for you as a beginner, And so if you don't really know where to go from here, that's definitely your best option.